So I want to fill in a couple of blanks. I noticed that in the previous videos, I kind of jumped from subject to subject, but I'm going to go back a little bit and talk about what was going on, why I went to the doctor in the first place. So in August of 2013, I started experiencing some pain in my stomach area, and I was also feeling a little dizziness, but other than that, there are a couple of times throughout the year that I had feelings where I was feeling a bit tired, and I would be at work and feel like I needed to take a nap. But other than that, I hadn't had any other symptoms until August of 2013 when I began to have the pain in my stomach area. And a friend of mine had invited me to go out of town with her, and I was actually trying to determine whether or not I should go or not because the pain had started to intensify, and I wanted to make sure I was okay, and I didn't want to be out of town and have something happen where I was hospitalized. And so right before I left, I went to the clinic and I saw a doctor thinking maybe I had some type of infection. I never had an infection before, but based on me kind of self-diagnosing and, hearing stories of friends, I was like, maybe, some type of infection. So I'll, go to the clinic and see what's going on. So I went to the clinic and they did a variety of tests and said that, the urine culture and everything came back negative, but they would give me possibly, I believe, they gave me some type of antibiotic, I think just to make me feel better or whatever, because they basically were saying that I was okay, just go home and eat better and exercise and, live happy ever after. So I decided to go ahead and go with my friend out of town, and came back and I still was feeling a bit fatigued, and I couldn't figure out why I didn't feel rested, even after a full night of sleep and other things. I just never felt like I was getting enough rest. And so I decided to go back to a PCP at this point and, tell her about what was going on and possibly get some tests done. It was my first time actually going to her. I was in a different neighborhood in a different area and had to find new doctors, and she didn't seem really interested in seeing me, or she didn't think that anything was wrong with me. In fact, just as the other doctor said, she just thought that I should eat better and exercise, and I would be fine. So after going back and forth with her, telling her the symptoms and things of that nature, I asked her if there was something that she could do, some type of test or procedure. I didn't know. I'm just like, I'm not feeling well, and it doesn't seem to get better. So what can you do to help me out, even if you think that I don't know what I'm talking about or whatever the case may be. So she looked a bit reluctant, and she altogether just looked like she wasn't interested in, seeing me. I'm not really sure what that was all about, but it was an interesting experience to say the least. And she said, well, I'll do a blood test, we'll do some blood work and see what happens from there. From the blood work to me actually getting online and checking the results of the blood work, I saw that the results said that I had an inflammation. I'm like, oh, an inflammation where? What type of inflammation? What is this inflammation? What are they talking about? So I emailed her, and to this day, I haven't talked to her. I've been back to her, but I did email her, and I said, what does this mean? And someone emailed me back and said, that I should go and see a hematologist. I didn't even know what a hematologist was. I had heard the word before, but wasn't really sure what type of specialist that was. And so at this point, I'm kind of concerned. I'm like, okay, there's inflammation. And also, they said that I was anemic. And so I started calling hematologists, and I'm like, I got some results from the doctor, and they're saying that I have an inflammation, and I need to see a hematologist. And so their offices were explaining to me that, I needed to get some type of consultation. In order to get that, there should be some type of paper trail or medical history. You just don't go and see a hematologist, apparently. And I didn't have any medical history. I very seldom got a cold. I didn't get sick. So hadn't really had any complications, anything in life major before this happened. So I went, and finally I was able to convince one doctor's office to see me, because some of them were like, this is weird, we need to see your medical history before you need to give us something. And so I finally secured an appointment, and I went, and the hematologist said to me, she did some exams or whatever. She was a lot nicer, but it was a totally different experience that I'll get into later. She listened, and she also said to me that she didn't think that I had any blood cancers or anything of that nature. So this was at the end of August, and so she sent me to a rheumatologist. And so when I saw the rheumatologist, she didn't think that I had any diseases in that category as well. And then from there, I went to get a CAT scan in October. So from August until October, I was going back and forth to different specialists trying to figure out what this inflammation was, what was going on. And in October, I had the test. October 21st, 2013, the hematologist called me back and said, we think you have lymphoma cancer. We need you to come in and do a biopsy. So August 28th, 2014, I went in to do a biopsy, scared out of my mind. Had never had any, again, major anything. So as it relates to medical procedures or problems. So I went in October 28th, had a biopsy. A couple of days later, got a call saying that I needed to go back and have a more invasive surgery because they couldn't make a determination based on the samples that they had. And so now we're talking surgery. We're talking about a person who didn't get colds or get sick, and now you want to cut my body. What are you talking about? So that was a lot. So I wasn't able to get the surgery until the third week of November, or second or third week of November, because I had to schedule time off with a job and kind of make arrangements for that, which was very complicated at the time. And had the surgery the same day. The doctor who did the surgery, once they were done, he told me, I think you have lymphoma. And I believe the same or next day, the hematologist visited me in the hospital and said the same thing. And so from that point, she wanted to begin treatment in January. And so now we're talking chemotherapy. So I've been through a lot in life. I would say that I'm a pretty courageous person. And for the first time in my adult life, I found myself afraid. It's like, wow, I'm gonna have to do chemotherapy. I had seen people and the results, or should I say the side effects that chemo had on family members and friends. And, we've seen a lot on television as well. And I feel like they do a pretty good job depicting some of the things that happens, and typically when people think cancer, I think people think more on the other side than they do on the side of living, or you're going to live. I think people first fear or thought is this person going to die? And so, yeah, so I started chemo in January of 2014, and life just took a totally different journey, and a very fast journey. Physically, mentally, and emotionally, I was not able to do some of the things that I was used to being able to do, and that was really hard for me to accept, and at times even process. I was still working during this time too, and my job required a lot of physical, mental, and emotional strength, and at times I just felt like I didn't always have it to offer. And I worked for the next 6 months under a lot of pressure, a lot of stress, and dealing with my side effects of the chemo. My first treatment was ABVD, and the side effects, definitely took a toll on me over time. So I did that treatment for 5 months. And in 5 months after treatment, after I started treatment, discovered that the cancer had reoccurred while I was still in treatment, and was told that I had to go ahead and do an ice chemo, as well as a stem cell transplant. Bone marrow transplant is what she said in the beginning. And so, major shocker, major upset. I had went through almost 6 months of treatment, thinking I was, well on my way to recovery, and, I was going to get back into the flow of life and get my hair back, and my skin had turned really, really dark. Like, my hands were really black, and people would often stop me and ask me what is going on? Why is your skin so dark? And, of course, all the losing your hair and the being sick, all the stuff that goes along with that. But I was devastated when I found out that it had reoccurred, and I was not going to be able to go back to my complicated life. It's what I call it. So when I found out that the cancer had reoccurred, and that I was going to have to do these new treatments, I was also informed that my insurance would not approve of the hospital that I had spent the last 6 months at. And so I had to find a new hospital and a new doctor within a 2-week period, as well as let my job know that I was going to take a leave, find a place to live, because my job provided me with housing and paid for it. So that was a major thing, and start treatment in 2 weeks. So I had some very almost close to impossible things that I needed to do, that I was trying to do, and I did everything in my physical power that I could to try to make those things happen, and I just wasn't able to make some of those things happen. And so in the middle of all of that, I had to actually return to work after the first treatment until I was able to pack my things and leave. So I stayed there an additional probably week or so, and then packed. And then I had to move into a hotel down close to the hospital, because at this point I found a hospital in downtown Chicago that I that was approved of by my insurance. And so yeah, life happened, and life is happening, and it has been happening ever since. Um, I started treatment in July. It was pretty evasive. Right away, I could see um, side effects, and they were way more intense than some of the ones that I had before. And so physically, um, it took a toll on me. Each treatment required me to be in the hospital for 3 days. So I would go every 2 weeks. I would spend 3 days in the hospital, come out, and go back and do it all over again. And then in the process of all of that, I had been experiencing some breathing problems. I had noticed, like, when I would walk, all of a sudden I'll lose my breath, and begin to gasp for air. And I mentioned it to the oncologist, and nothing really became of that. And then when I went to the new hospital, she ran some tests, and we later discovered, months later, that one of the drugs from the first chemo had actually poisoned and damaged my lungs. And as a result of that, in September of 2014, I was put on a pretty high dosage of steroids to treat the SID pneumonia, so that I could go ahead with the stem cell transplant. I did my harvest for the stem cell transplant in August of 2014, thinking that, any day afterwards that I would go ahead and start with the transplant. And today is April 4th of 2015, and still no transplant. So it has been a long wait, and there have been major setbacks and major disappointments too. But so back to September of starting the high dosage of steroids, I immediately began to gain weight. Each week I would, probably pick up 5 to 6 pounds. And I had started gaining weight earlier in the year. Right away I noticed it with the chemos, which was a little backwards or different, I would say. I would say backwards, because each person is different and some things affects others differently. But I started gaining weight right away with the first treatment, second treatment, and even more so with the third treatment, because I started a new drug in September, I believe, as well. And it was a preventive drug. So I was on a really high dosage of steroids, and then I had to also do another evasive surgery because they thought that I had lung cancer. So I did that in September as well, and which is actually how they found the pneumonia. And so from October to December, they kind of led me to believe that, everything was clearing up, and I should get the transplant before the year is out. That never happened. And then in January, they were saying, okay, January is the month. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. And the day of that I was so-called going to get the transplant, I got a call from the nurse practitioner saying that I was not going to get it and that I would also need to go back to the high dosage of steroids because the pneumonia came back, and that they thought that the tapering was too fast, which caused it to come back. And so very disappointed, of course. Still playing the waiting game, and still trying to figure out what's going on with my body, and still trying to keep up, and still trying to stay sane, and still trying to have dignity in the process of all of that, losing, my income, and going on all type of roller coaster rides, trying to get help and learn the structure of hospital social work. That's a whole different story. I'll revisit that because it has been such a journey. In addition to that, learning about the system and learning what programs and learning how people are treated if they don't have insurance or if they lose their insurance, because I was well on the way and had for a short period of time lost my insurance. And if you don't have money, so there is um, some stories to tell about that as well, and I'll get back to that at a later date. But in short, learning about the system, learning how people treat you, learning the disdain and uh, just the way that people treat people because they are less fortunate. And it wasn't my desire to get cancer. It wasn't my desire to actually end up in a place where I didn't even have a place to live, and I didn't have the financial support or support at all, actually, to you know, that I needed during that time. So it's a lot, and I definitely want to talk about that, and definitely want to share more on those experiences and how they shaped me, and how through these experiences I've learned that there are so many needs, and there's definitely room for coaching when it comes to people in different situations. And yeah, I just want to talk about that more in depth as time progressed. But I wanted to kind of give an overview of what has happened over the last year and a half, and um, take it from there. So I hope that this wasn't painful to watch or listen to, and I hope that as time progressed, someone actually finds some type of comfort. Because one of the things that I regret actually during this time is that I pretty much went through it alone, um, as it relates to connecting with people with like issues and or had been through um, these types of things. And I think it would have been helpful to connect with people more that I could relate to. And so that's what this is all about. All right, thanks.